Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you for the introduction. And again, I'd like to express thanks to all the people who have been involved in this project. I've actually moved several times in the course of this project. That's how long it's been going for. So there's people from ESA and PWA I'd like to thank for being part of this, Bob Battaglio and Carlos and Mark Lindley. There's a lot of other people being involved, and it's a very interesting story, which is separate from this talk, about how the organization of all this grew together. And I think it's a good format to think about other projects, about multidisciplinary, lots of different people different involved, lots of different objectives, but coming together to a common end. And the common end is this view that we have of the bay, which is common around the bay. This is actually right next door to the Oraloma Sanitary District. This is Roberts Landing. It's showing the juxtaposition of the marshes to the city, to the different assets that we have in here, the infrastructure and so on. And this is a common view of the bay that we have, and we've been managing that in a similar way over the last 40 years. We've been restoring it. We've been moving levees back from the edge of the bay. We've been restoring marshes in front of it. It's a typical cross-section we have of mudflat, salt marsh, and levee. We've restored a lot of those areas, and we've got a lot of benefits from those. We've got habitat benefits. We've had wave attenuation benefits as the waves pass over those marshes. The plants move around, and they take out energy from the wave, and so we can get less waves on our levee, we can have a smaller levee, we can have a better maintained levee. So there's lots of benefits we have there for the species, the clapper rail, the salt marsh harvest mouse, and so on. But that's a rather static view of life. It's a very flat area. It's a flat area because we built upon those old marsh plains. We're now restoring them, but we've lost a lot of the upland areas. And that importance of the upland transition areas, those pieces which we're separated from, has been really brought home during the last year or so in the Bayland Goals. An important document that was written for the bay, illustrating how we might, the values that we have in the bay, but also how we might manage them with climate change. And this is a drawing done by Peter Bay of what things used to look like. We don't see any of this now. But what we had in the past was marshes, but also behind that there were transition zones into the upland areas with streams coming through, sort of brackish areas at the back, fresh water coming into the back of the marshes. We had lots of, we had channels moving through here, we had splays and alluvial fans moving in the back, we had marsh scarps at the front. A very dynamic, diverse situation, which we're lacking now. But we can learn a lot about how we could manage the shoreline in the future if we can start putting those aspects of the shoreline back. So thinking about diversity, thinking about topographic gradients, thinking about slopes. The other thing we've done, we put a lot of our water, our fresh water, into pipes, and we're using it to good use in our bathrooms and then through the wastewater facilities. But we've done that at the expense of some of the other habitats we have here. So this is a map that we did as part of the work we did for Mike Connor's EBDA study, looking at the bigger picture, thinking about where water used to come into the marshes. And here, what we've done is we mapped out firstly the long pipe that connects all the different wastewater treatment facilities down the bay. And we've illustrated where the long outfall is. So a lot of the water that used to go to the back of the marshes now comes out into the middle of the bay. We've also marked in all these little stormwater channels, which used to, water used to flow in from the backs of the uplands back into the marshes, but now is in channels throughout the system. So we separated the marshes from the water, we separated it from the sediment, and we've also flattened it. And so thinking ahead with sea level rise, and remember sea level rise is coming. Don't quite tell you how much it is, but my estimate is up to my knee by 2050 and up to my shoulders by 2100. That's a good guess, but I won't be here. Is that we need to think about how we can accommodate those types of changes. So thinking ahead, that's where the emphasis came upon building a slope behind the marsh and in front of the levee. We're not going to be the marsh is set where it is, it's set in relation to the mudflat. We're not going to move the levee because Fremont and Union City are built there. The place we can work with and build some topographic variation is between those two. And that's really the genesis of this work. The second part was, if we do that, and we don't provide the right hydrology, we don't provide those salinity gradients and those changes in the water that's needed on the slopes, we're just going to be out with a weedy mess on there. So thinking about how to create a more natural, native plant community on those slopes required not just elevation, not just a slope, but also requires water. And the people with the water were the ones that had in the pipe, which was Jason and others who have it in their wastewater treatment facilities. So now you can see how we're trying to build a future landscape based upon those pieces. Because the advantage of this type of slope is that it allows the marsh to react to sea level rise. It allows the continuation of those wave attenuation benefits, those flood risk management benefits. It also allows a much better type of habitat because we're including some of those pieces of the habitat which we've lost because we built levees in place. So there's a number of different benefits. The pieces that we know a lot about are mudflats and tidal marshes. We've been restoring those for the last 40 years, so we have a lot of experience of those. The bit that we don't know so much about is this slope over here with the water running through it. And that's the whole aim of the experiment at Oroloma, which Jason's been talking about. So we're very selective in the area that we've been studying. And we're trying to understand how that works before we start implementing on a bigger scale. Because the 700-foot long football field that Jason described is only an experiment. And we're looking at how you might scale this up. So thinking about how you're scaling up is thinking about all those benefits that we could accrue from this. We could accrue flood risk management benefits to those communities behind those areas by providing more of a buffer against the waves and against the floods we have in the bay. We could provide better treatment for the wastewater, providing them an easier way to operate because we can provide some flood from equalization to wet weather. We can reduce their energy consumptions and also remove some nitrogen. Those are the things we're trying to experiment with the ecological slope. But importantly, it also removes infrastructure from the marshes. If we can decentralize some of the flows, so we don't put it out in one big outfall, but we do it into the individual marshes, then we can actually reduce the vulnerability of our communities because we've taken out one of the key assets from the marsh and we've placed it back and put it much more in harmony with the rest of the shoreline. So those aspects of it are important. But also, it's part of our last 40 years of restoring and maintaining and valuing the marsh. We can provide a better habitat for providing those upland areas which served the marshes as well. So it's trying to create this win-win situation from immediately, as well as providing long-term benefits from sea level rise. So thinking about it on the broader term, this is a cartoon, is that the type of slope that we're talking about, being expanded at Oroloma, is a component of how we might want to manage our shoreline for the natural and for our communities into the future with sea level rise, making it more resilient, allowing those functions to continue long and into the century. And so one area we might want to think about is what we should have whether we have levees, we might want to put these longer slopes in and connect those to wastewater treatment facilities, allowing that gradients of topography and salinity to occur. But equally, we might also want to think about how we connect channels, how we connect those stormwater channels so that they can redistribute sediment, they can redistribute freshwater flows at the backs of the marshes, creating maybe alluvial fans at the back there, creating more topography, more variation that we have in the bays and so on. And there's a number of different elements that I think that Oroloma is part of. It's part of a toolbox that we're going to have that we can apply around the bay. It's not as applicable everywhere in the bay, but there's certainly providing a more resilient shoreline into the future. So those bigger picture views are important. But these are just cartoons. Well, these are just cartoons. It just comes to my punchline joke. Is that these visions, I had this really good quote, which was, these visions are without an implementation plan, are mere hallucinations. And so we've been hallucinating about this for a number of years, and thinking about how you'd actually fit it into the shoreline is an important piece. And so we need to get these experiments out. We need to make people aware of what the possibilities are. But we also need to think about how this could be implemented in the ground, because sea level rise is coming. We don't have much time to prepare. We have a few decades. And so we need to start thinking almost in parallel, not only what we should do, but where we should do it and how we should do it. So thinking ahead, and this is actually from a PWR report from 2010, which we did a long time ago, we started drawing out lines where maybe in the blue and the green is where you want to do these horizontal levees behind marshes. Maybe where you have San Lorenzo Creek coming out here, that you could promote a delta to provide more protection. And maybe in front of the West Midland landfill, which are not going to move very quickly, you may want to put something like beaches where you could absorb more energy. So thinking about this diversity of landscapes into the future to create more resilient landscape is an important piece. That's a high-level piece, and I think the next people are going to talk much more detailed about the slopes itself. Thank you.